My boss sent me a meeting request to talk about my status on a project, and I was stoked. I had been trying to get her attention for a while, but she'd just been so busy. So I hop on the video call, and there she was, with some chick I didn't know. I quickly looked at this person's name on the call and realized that she was an HR rep. I went from excited to gut punched in about 3.2 seconds. Oh, great. Oh, great. Here we go. Here we go. I've been here before. I knew exactly what was going to happen. And that moment becomes so much more than, oh crap, I'm losing my job, right? There's this mental avalanche that starts happening. There's panic, self-doubt, nausea, the thought of what the hell am I going to do now? The spiral hits really fast. But then comes the predictable script about how this was purely a financial decision and it was out of their hands. What? Is there like a playbook on how to lay off people that they give to HR or something? Maybe it's called something like How to Crush Souls in 3 Easy Steps. Nice. It's not about your performance, it's the market. And we're restructuring to better position ourselves for the future. Blah, 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 blah. Ugh. I don't care about any of these things. I hear the same thing in every single layoff. I'm glad that you appreciate what I did for the company. Yeah, I know I'm a freaking rock star and I'll be an asset wherever I go and that my next company will be lucky to have me. But what do I do until then? How am I supposed to deal with this thing that's happening to me right now, right? Today, we're talking about the mental toll that layoffs take. It's the stuff that really no one warns you about and why companies should really be talking about mental health in these layoff meetings. Now, being in tech, I've been through the layoff process several times over the course of my 30-year career, and I've seen how companies handle it. Spoiler alert, nothing has changed in 30 years. Why are we still pretending that this system is okay? Does anyone even question it, or do we keep doing it because that's just how things have always been done? Now, I've got some thoughts, and trust me, I've been through this enough times to know exactly how this process works or doesn't work. So let's chitty chat and get real about it. During the actual layoff, the whole conversation is just a blur, right? My brain is spiraling, trying to figure out how much money do I have in my bank account? How long can I last, right? When are my bills due? What can I cut out on spending? But losing a job isn't just losing a paycheck. It is a mental hit. Your identity, your sense of stability, all of that just goes right out the window. But do companies address any of that? Nope. They shuffle you out the door and act like it's no big deal because you know what? To them, it's not. This isn't just a me problem, this is an us problem. Let's look at the numbers. As of this writing, in October 2024, according to Layoffs FYI, over 140,000 tech employees were laid off in 2024 alone, right? But the total layoffs across all industries are much, much higher. In just the US, there were approximately 1.6 million layoffs in 2024, spread across sectors like healthcare, manufacturing, retail, and financial services. Now, industries like professional and business services, trade, transportation, utilities, and leisure and hospitality are also starting to see significant job cuts. For example, over 436,000 layoffs occurred in professional services in 2024. These aren't just numbers, these are lives. Behind each of those numbers is a person, someone like you and me who is suddenly staring at an uncertain future. Older workers in particular are hit harder during layoffs as they tend to be more vulnerable due to higher salaries and perceived difficulties adapting to new technology, especially in industries like tech where there's a bias towards younger people already. This can compound the mental health toll that layoffs have on older workers, particularly as they face challenges with reemployment due to ageism. Now, here's where it gets serious. It's not just about losing a job. It's about the mental health fallout that comes with it. Research shows that job loss can increase the risk of depression by up to 30%. Now, let me tell you, that 30% depression statistic there feels more like 100% when you're actually in it, right? Since COVID, there's been a surge in mental health challenges, including depression and suicide, especially due to prolonged economic stress and social isolation. The financial strains from the layoffs, the lingering effects of the pandemic, and the ongoing challenges older individuals face when reentering the workforce have all contributed to this rise. The suicide rates for older adults, particularly men over 40, have been steadily climbing. In fact, suicide rates in the 45 to 64 age range have seen a troubling increase. And it's not hard to see why. Research shows that older workers, especially those in their 40s to their 60s, are facing higher rates of depression and anxiety as they grapple with layoffs and the uphill battle of reentering the workforce. The emotional toll isn't just real, it's devastating. I can attest to that. There is a recognized connection between economic strain and mental health crisis, which are likely to contribute to increased suicide rates as unemployment continues to affect older workers. Now, I looked up my own layoff documents here that I got in January of 2024. So first off, they give you a guide, right, that has the standard stuff. When are you getting your final paycheck? How do you return your equipment? You're going to be receiving information about COBRA, right? It's the same thing you see in every layoff. Then there's the separation agreement, all about, non-competes, severance, and not bad-mouthing the company. But if you're over 40, buried in that agreement is something really interesting. There's an actual list of the titles of everyone being laid off and their ages. They do this as a part of something called the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act. It's a legal cover to make sure you can't turn around and sue them for ageism. They include the ages of everyone being laid off, as if that somehow proves that they're not targeting older workers. But guess what? Older workers are more vulnerable during layoffs. The data shows it, and anyone who's been through this knows it. Me. That would be me. They're higher earners, and companies want to cut costs. And trust me, seeing your age on that list alongside everyone else doesn't make you feel any better. And while companies are legally covering their butts, they're completely ignoring the fact that mental health support is nowhere to be found. They toss in 30 days of an employee assistance program, but by the time most of us figure out how to use it and what we need, the damage is already done and our 30 days is up. Companies are so focused on avoiding lawsuits that they completely overlook the actual damage that they're causing. Where's the acknowledgement that layoffs aren't just financial? They're emotional and psychological bombs that we're left to clean up. We've got laws that are supposedly protecting us from ageism, but who's protecting us from the stress, the anxiety, and the depression that follows being let go? The fact is, companies know how to cover their legal bases, but when it comes to mental health, we are absolutely on our own. Here's my big question though. Should companies be held responsible for the mental health of their laid off employees? Should they be held accountable for the emotional toll that comes with the layoff? Do they owe us more than COBRA? Yes, God, have you seen how much COBRA is? Because here's the thing, as a society, we're learning more and more about mental health every day. So shouldn't companies evolve with that knowledge, especially when it's their decisions that lead to these mass layoffs? Shouldn't they have some responsibility for the aftermath? Maybe it's their poor planning, or maybe they overhired during a growth phase. Either way, the fallout is landing on us. And while I don't know what the perfect solution is, I think it's a conversation that's long overdue. I'm not saying that companies should suddenly become therapists or hold our hands through it all, but come on. As we grow as a society and understand more and more about the impacts of layoffs and our mental health, isn't it time to ask if the company should be doing more? And it's not like companies aren't aware of mental health. They talk about employee well-being all the time, throwing around buzzwords like wellness and work-life balance. But then they toss you out the door with nothing but a COBRA form. Where's the wellness in that? Shouldn't companies at least help clean up the mess that they create? Shouldn't they be held accountable? I don't know. I just think we should start asking the question. So what could companies do better? Now, I'm not saying they need to shell out bajillions of monies for therapy for every laid off employee, but here's a thought. What if they provided an immediate mental health resource, like right then? What if just instead of handing our paperwork, they connected us with a counseling service right then and there that we could call immediately if we wanted to? Someone who's actually trained to help when your world has just flipped upside down. Would it really cost that much for companies to offer just like a 30-minute therapy session? Probably not. Would it help people through the adjustment? Honestly, it couldn't hurt. No, Karen, my COBRA form doesn't count as mental health support. Or how about checking in with employees a month or two after the layoff to see how they're doing? It's not complicated. It can be like an auto email or something. These are small steps and they wouldn't break the bank. Companies could offer career transition services or coaching to help laid off employees re-enter the job market with confidence. This could include resume writing help, interview coaching, and even connections to other job opportunities. It's not just about the mental health support, but it's about addressing the anxiety of what comes next. Companies could offer extended healthcare coverage for just a few months post-layoff to ensure employees have access to both their physical and their mental health care. This can help bridge the gap while we find our footing. That would be so killer, so killer. COBRA rates are absolutely and completely just bonkers. No one can pay for that. Layoffs often lead to immediate financial stress. So why not offer access to financial planning services that could help employees navigate severance, unemployment benefits, and how to stretch your savings while searching for a new job? This would alleviate some of that mental strain that's tied to this financial uncertainty. Companies could establish a rehire program where laid off employees are given priority for open positions within the company as business conditions improve. This could offer a real sense of hope and stability. Look, I know layoffs aren't going anywhere. They're part of the business world, but pretending they're just a financial transaction is where companies are really missing the mark. The emotional fallout is absolutely real, and companies, I think, should be addressing it. What about you? If you were being laid off, what would make a big difference to you? Layoffs aren't just about severance packages and final paychecks. They are freaking emotional. They mess with your head, and it's time we start talking about that. Companies might not be responsible for what happens after we're laid off, but they sure as hell have a role in how they can handle it. And as we keep learning more and more about mental health, they can't just keep turning a blind eye. So I want to hear from you. Have you been through a layoff? How did your company handle it? What did they do? Did they offer any kind of real support, or did they just kind of show you the door? Let's get this conversation started because it's time we demand better. Thanks for being here. Let's keep talking. I'll see you in the next video.